Hey there, I'm Heidi with Aging Together here as we are talking about caring for our loved ones in their golden years. And I thought it probably would only make sense that as we are kind of right now in this moment, kicking off this journey of sharing here in this space, to maybe give a little bit of background information of why we're here, what our experience is, why we're doing this now, so that maybe it can help you in your process of caring for the loved ones in your lives, or maybe reaching out to your loved ones for a little more help as you are seeing your golden years kind of tick on and finding new things that could maybe use a little bit of assistance. I'm going to leave this video up so that it can explain our story, where we came from a little bit, and kind of a slightly different approach to caring for aging parents that I know most other people our age haven't quite been in the position the same way that we had, but I think it's unique and helpful to share in a just real and raw way, and so that's what we're going to do here today. The whole idea of aging together has, kind of just come up with things going on in our lives and really just facing these different things and looking back at things that we've already gone through. It kind of was just one of those I really felt kind of laid upon my heart of, this is a bigger problem that a lot of people are having to deal with. And hearing the term, sandwich generation of people that are still, raising their own children while now facing aging parents, and how do you kind of fit all these things together? And it's actually a topic that has been a key component of my life since my early 20s. And so since it's been something that we've actually been dealing with for quite a while now, nearly 20 years later, I thought it would be something that would make sense to just go ahead and start sharing about on YouTube anyways. And I know we're going to kind of be diving into a lot of different videos and topics and things that are going on with what we're facing right now, but I thought to just have one video out there somewhere that kind of told our story and where we're at would answer a lot of questions down the road. And so it goes all the way back to me and my husband meeting and getting married when I was just 17 years old. Well, we met when I was 14, we got married when I was 17, and starting our family and doing all of that. But an interesting component that we had going into our relationship was that he had a much older mom. My mom was 21 when she had me, so she was quite a bit younger, but his mom was 40 when she had him. He has older siblings, and they were all born really, really close together, and then there's this big 13-year age gap before he was born. And so it was always this kind of unique situation because my mom was the same age as his siblings. His mom was the same age as my grandmother, and his grandmother was the same age as my great grandparents. And so we were always kind of like off a generation anyways, which just always kind of made things a little unique and different. We also knew that when it came time to, need to care for his mom, that would depend on us. That would be, we were like the deemed ones that we knew we would be the ones doing that. And so in my early 20s, we had, gotten married young. We actually moved across the country and kind of started our lives. We're following our dreams, and his mom was coming up on her, retirement, and really just wanted to be back with us. We had only been away for a few years, but she was ready to be back with us. And so in our early 20s, we moved her in with us to care for her. Now, she was still fairly able-bodied. She had suffered a lot of abuse in her life, and so there's definitely things that, we kind of always took into account. She had retired, she wasn't driving anymore, she had some health things she was dealing with, but overall was, fairly well with it. So while there were definitely things we did to look out for her and care for her, it was also really nice to have an extra set of hands. Our son at that point was in kindergarten. We had our second child. And so having an extra set of hands to keep a kindergartner occupied while you're dealing with a newborn or whatever, was definitely something we really, really appreciated. And so we had that time with her. That was kind of our first step into having an aging parent, and kind of that first phase of it to care for. Now, it also had its difficulties because, like I said, we were in our early 20s and, pursuing our careers and our lives and marriage and children and all of the things you have going on. And none of our friends were dealing with aging parents. My mom was still really young and off working and doing her own thing, so I had this very unique relationship with a mother-in-law and my husband with his mom, who's really the age of all of our friends' grandparents, but yet we were having to care for an aging parent. And so it was kind of this unique time of our lives where we had no one to go to. Stuff like this, YouTube, things like this didn't exist back then. So we really didn't have anybody to go to for tips and advice and help as we went through it. And we were kind of just figuring it out on our own. So I'm thankful now, looking back, for all the lessons that were learned. Of course, very thankful for our time together, but it definitely had its share of struggles and hardships and mistakes that we made along the way because we didn't really know how to go about this, and we didn't really have anybody to go to ask, their input and their advice for. And so fast forward a few years, she went and she did get a handful of years that she got to go spend with her other children, which I think was, wonderful for her. And before we knew it, it was time for her to come back with us. And what really surprised us here was, although only a few years had gone by in the time of, we had been with her obviously when, we were kids, we get married, we move out, we kind of do our own thing. A few years later, she's back in with us. We have her for a few years, and then we go, and kind of let her have time with other kids while we're doing our own thing. And then she's back with us again. What really surprised us was how drastic of a difference it was in just a short few years' time. When she moved back in with us, it was very apparent that something had shifted, something had changed. She was not still as able-bodied and sound of mind. It wasn't like we now had, an extra set of grandparent hands to kind of help out. We have 3 kids at this point now. And we started to realize that that wasn't the case. It was almost like having a 4th kid, right? Like as far as responsibility and needing to be there and be present and be making sure that she was safe and things were okay. What was really difficult that we found, and again, we're now in our very early 30s, just like late 20s, early 30s here. What was very, very different too was still that fact that none of our friends were dealing with this. I mean, my mom wasn't even having to care for her parents yet. And yet here we were with my mother-in-law trying to figure out how to navigate this. Noticing that things didn't seem right. She was getting very defiant though. She, when I would suggest maybe let's go to the doctors, when have you been checked last? I think something's not wrong. I think something is wrong. Something is not right. Oh no, I'm fine. I just didn't sleep or whatever, and kind of not knowing when to push and, how to go about this. She's still her own person. She's an adult. She's been my second mom since I was 14 years old. So I want to respect her in that way, but something isn't right. Something is different. And I don't know how to go about this. And none of my friends are dealing with this. My mom isn't even dealing with this yet. Who do I go to? And so we had a really long struggle of trying to navigate raising our own children. I ended up pregnant with our 4th. We're, having babies, raising our kids. We homeschool. We're in ministry full time. We work from home. We have a little homestead, right? So I'm trying to juggle all of my normal, hello, I'm in my early 30s, life things to be doing and marriage and kids and all of that while caring for an elderly parent who is got some health stuff going on and different things happening. And how do you do this all? Okay. So this was that first really, it made the early years of my 20s look like cakewalk compared to what we were dealing with now. And so she is having more and more issues. We're starting to have falls. We're starting to have accidents. We're starting to have many different things happening. She's only becoming more and more defiant. My husband and I are really at a loss. We have no idea what to do and really no support from anyone else in the family either. So it was difficult. And I wish I had someone to go to that could have helped me through that process. Thankfully, though, the Lord in his perfect timing, things started to happen. And while they were difficult in the time when they happened, I'm thankful for them now looking back. Unfortunately, she had a really bad fall, and it got to a point that she had to go to the emergency room. She had to go in. And so while I was in there, I said, you know what, Lord, I feel like it's now or never. I'm just going to take this opportunity and I'm going to be that canary just screeching in the coal mine. Because remember, she's been refusing to go to doctors. She's been refusing to talk to anyone about anything. Everything that my husband and I are bringing up that we think is wrong is being, like shoo-shooed, So while I'm there, I'm like, you know what? I am just going to like screech. Mind you, I'm still like nursing an infant and, juggling all of the things. But I was like, well, I'm here. I'm making the most of this. And I kept telling, I think something is wrong. Something is not right. We've been saying it for the past few years. Help. Anyone, please. And it was so validating to me because as I'm saying this to the nurses, the doctors, the different specialists, things like that were saying, well, we're in this like hospital period after this injury. They're all looking at me and going, oh, is she diagnosed? And I go, no, she refuses to see a doctor. And they go, oh, she has to go get an official diagnosis. But yeah, I can see from a mile away that every concern you're telling me about, 1,000%, yep, it's there. Like I've spent 20 minutes with her and I can tell you that absolutely that's, I validate what you're saying. That was amazing. And so that really did bring for us and the family that point of, guys, something has to change. We've been saying it, right? Like we've been saying something was wrong, but now I'm telling you something is wrong. And now the doctors are backing it up that more follow-ups, more testing, more things have to happen because something is not right. And so going through that with her and trying to love her and serve her in this while still remaining firm with getting her the best care that we could, we found out and got, her diagnosed. She had Alzheimer's, she had Parkinson's disease, she was dealing with many different things. And now it was like, wow, this just got real. How do we care for your aging mom? Well, again, like our youngest is an infant. Our oldest, I think, was like 13 at the time. And we're trying to homeschool them and, run our lives. And now we have this. And how do we care for her? We found ourselves in a time where she was falling so much, we're having so many issues, the mind stuff that's going on, and then the Parkinson's, everything kind of all coming together. We had to put her into an assisted living facility. That was such a difficult decision to make. And again, we didn't have anybody we could go to and talk about this, right? My husband and I, we really poured over this for so long because I wanted to care for her. I wanted to love her to the best of my ability and give her the best care. And I thought that best care would be through me, right? Like, I will do everything you need. My husband, the kids, all of us, right? We were there to love on her and care for her. But really, it came to a point where the best care for her wasn't care we could give. And so having to then, in my very early 30s, figure out what one looks for in an assisted living facility. How does one pay for that? What do you do with the insurance? How do you keep up with all the doctors? And say, like, how do you juggle all of these things with your real life that you still have to live? It was a very, very difficult season for sure. And so we did that for years and went through many different things with accidents, with surgeries, with medications, with, you name it. We covered all kinds of things that we had to go through. That was, over the years when COVID hit, things like that. That was a whole new ballgame. We had to figure out how to deal with things with that. And so we went through all of that with her. And of course, things just continue to progress. The Parkinson's gets worse and worse. Her mind's slipping more and more. Other things are starting to come in and be factors now. And we did get to the point where she was kind of really at the last stage of everything where one of her other children said, you know what, I'd really like to try to, take the baton from here and get this last little bit with her. And so she was moved over to be with them. And of course, we still stayed in contact and came out to visit as we could and that. But unfortunately, it was just that very slow, awful process of that last final stage until she did pass, and kind of wrapping up all of that and going through that with, just my husband and our children and everything as a whole. I really do look back and am so thankful for all the time that we got. But it's a lot. It is a lot. And we look at so much now with how, people are able to live longer with chronic conditions because of modern medicine, which I'm thankful for in so many rights, but it also does make so many things more difficult for those who are here trying to care for that. And so that's what leads me to now this phase of life and why we're starting Aging Together. So I've already cared for my mother-in-law. My grandparents, as they started to get older. My grandmother, she ended up, dealing with dementia and non-alcoholic cirrhosis of the liver and different things she was going through. And my mom and stepdad, got her and my grandfather moved out near them, and they started the caretaking process. So it was always kind of interesting where I had been caretaking for my mother-in-law for a while, and now they're starting theirs. And so at least for a little bit there, it was like, oh, hey, I finally have someone else who's dealing with this, because none of my friends are still, but at least now my mom is, so at least we kind of had a little bit of like, how's it going and all of that. And so they deal with that. And unfortunately, a few years ago, my grandmother did pass away. And so my mom and stepdad had been left caring for my grandfather, who he had a severe stroke a couple years ago, and, how to care for him through that and everything. And what's interesting now is I'm, approaching 40. My mom and stepdad, who just hit 60, they're dealing with health issues. They're getting older, each of us do every single day, and age is a blessing. Age is a blessing. Not everybody gets it. So every day that you get, praise the Lord for it, and appreciate every gray hair that pops out as your crown of glory for living a life, of beauty and blessing from the Lord. But they're getting older, and they're dealing with health conditions, chronic health conditions that are not just going to go away. They are having to come to terms with, the fact that they are getting older and things are different, and they can't maybe necessarily do the things they were doing. And then on top of that, they're still trying to care for my grandfather, who is, he does fantastic for himself. He really, really does. But the effects of the stroke and just getting older and things slowing down and, sicknesses coming on and being a little more unsteady on his feet and things like that. They've had to move him in with them. And now they're trying to, figure out all their pieces. And then the cherry on top, the catalyst for this all, is my mom, who I am so thankful for. She's dealing with a lot of health stuff, and accidents have been happening, and they've been getting worse as they happen. And so after this recent accident that just happened, where she literally had a 600-pound four-wheeler crash onto her face down on the ground after she had flipped off of it, no helmet, no nothing, in a freak farm accident. It was kind of that point of something has to change. It is now time for my husband and I, and my brothers are involved in this, and the grandkids, and all of us together. How do we care for them? Because yes, you don't have to be, 100 years old to need a loving, helping pair of hands to care for you. Us elder millennials here in this generation, we are kind of in this unique sandwich generation where our parents are needing assistance. We may not, most of us don't come into this world with some sort of chronic, debilitating something, but most every human leaves this world dealing with a chronic condition. My mom and my stepdad are both dealing with chronic conditions. My mom from health stuff that went undiagnosed for years and years and years that we've been trying to manage and deal with ever since then. My stepdad, who is a veteran and suffered different, injuries and things, that he went through with that. And then just a life of, American health care, which different topic for a different day, that is really just compounding as he is getting older. How best do we take care of them? How do I take care of my aging parents, who are also trying to help take care of my aging grandfather, while still raising my kids? My youngest is now 7 currently as I'm filming this, but I've still got young kids in the house. I homeschool, we my husband and I, we have our things that we do. We have a homestead we run, we have our own things. How does this all come together? And so since this has happened with her, and it's really just been this wake-up call of something has to change. We can't keep going down this road thinking everything's going to be okay. Changes have to be made. We need to learn how to age together. They need helpers. They need extra hands someone needs to be there. And there is so much blessing and beauty and opportunity to spend more time together and to make that a priority and to make shifts and changes in lifetime that you can't get back. I'm thankful for the promise that I have as a follower of Christ and knowing that I have eternity to still be where my mother-in-law is. I'm thankful for that. But I am very thankful for the time that we had together and that we made that a priority. We did that. And now looking for, my parents and my grandfather and going, okay, how do we do this? How do we make these changes? How do we readjust? How best do we serve them? And how quite practically do we deal with all the things that come with aging? And so all of that in a nutshell is the story behind and catalyst to this channel, Aging Together. I didn't know all those years that I spent trying to figure out how to care for my mother-in-law that I would learn as much as I did. And it was really being in the hospital with my mom here just recently that all those things just kind of kicked back in for me. And I was just doing them, and you don't realize it. And as we're sitting here looking at massive things for our family and our life and what this is going to change and what we're going to do and how to navigate it, all of that time in my 20s and early 30s with her really is just so pivotal in this moving forward piece. And now as our friends that are our age are starting to get to these seasons of life where they have loved ones that are aging that need some assistance, I say, you know what? Why don't we share what we've learned and what we continue to learn as now we move forward doing this again? With my mom, with my stepdad, with my grandfather, right? As we start moving forward and moving into this again and doing these things, how can we share? Could it be a little nugget of wisdom that we've learned over our experience? Could it be just being humble and honest to share where we're struggling and what we're going through in hopes that it might encourage or help one other? Is there a resource that could be created so that way others that were maybe like me back all those years ago could have somewhere to go and glean a little bit of helpful just guidance along the way? Is just having a community of others who are facing these types of things something that can go out and help someone else? We all get older day by day. And yes, I'm thankful for every opportunity to get to age, right? I'm thankful that I have today, and Lord, I pray I have it tomorrow. So how can I use the opportunity I have when a loved one comes to a point that they could use some help and some care in their golden years? How can I do that? And how can I share along the way so that maybe just one other person out there can get some help and encouragement as well? That's our goal here. So that's our story. So whenever you're seeing this, Lord willing, this will stay up for years and years and years and serve whoever it comes before. Hopefully a little bit of background and understanding here to we're just regular people trying to do the best for our loved ones, and maybe it can be a help and a blessing for you. That's what it is here to be. So if any of this can help you in your process of aging together with your loved ones, be sure you subscribe and turn on the bell notifications. Check out the links in all the recent videos, as the goal here is to be a raw, an honest, a humble approach to the reality of caring for our loved ones as they age through life and us right alongside of them. I'll see you on the next video. Bye, friends.